massively battling with oh, hang on, it's being recorded. Now I've got to put my glasses back on because I can't see the way to turn it off. Okay, continue. Yeah, so this Zoom lifestyle, this is doing my head in because I can't see any of this with my glasses on. And if I get closer than this, I can't see you without them on. So I'm just constantly bloody doing this, okay? So I apologise. And I probably swear because I've been on my own for 8 weeks and I can say what I fucking like whenever I like. So I will swear. Okay, so some of you had a kit and some of you hopefully will have seen a little bit of pre-information. So I'm going to try and whiz through a few different things with you. So I've got a list here. So I'm going to go through the avocado dyeing with you. And I've got a bit of a Blue Peter scenario with some done, some not done and all that kind of thing. I'm going to show you a couple of little folding shibori processes with very small little bits of cloth for now. And then I'm just going to show you a couple of other wild plant dyes that I've got on the go, because yesterday I went and collected stuff from the meadow because I'm involved with this campaign, which will maybe I'll get a bit of a plug later. But I was gathering plant material yesterday, so I've been working on those. So I'm going to show you those. And then I'm going to go into the other room and take some of the dyes in there with me and show you how they become inks. Just very quickly, and just go through the avocado colours and things, and then I'm going to make a flower. Now we're going to do that in like 25 minutes. I'm not quite sure how we'll give it a go. Okay, so avocado dye is a really, really simple one, and I've done it a couple of times at the Green Squirrel workshops, and I've really struggled, and it hasn't worked. And it's like, oh, we've been rushing, we've only got 2 hours, and it's just really difficult to get it going that quickly. No, I was just doing it wrong. Okay, so it's the pits that you need, the stones. The skins do have colour, but it's really difficult to get it out of them, and they take a lot of soaking. Whereas the pits, you get amazing colour pretty quickly from them. So here's one that I cut up about an hour ago. And when I cut it out of the avocado, it was completely white. So you can see the colour that's already coming out of that with the oxidization. So it's essentially tannin, which lots of plants have, and which gives us lots of natural dye colours. So the first step is to cut them up fairly. If you use them fresh, you can just cut them with the scissors, with a good knife. They're actually softer than you realise. If you leave them, so you can let them just dry out, and then they'll go pretty hard. But if you put them in a pan, put boiling water over them and leave them to simmer for an hour, and then I tend to leave them overnight as well. You can then cut them up with the scissors, they'll go softer. So hopefully you can kind of see, I'm going to bring this to here. So in here, that's the avocados that I have been saving since the beginning of lockdown and let them dry out. And then on Monday, I put boiling water over them and let them soak. What do we say? Wednesday. So they've been soaking for 2 days with just boiling water, and then let them simmer. So you don't let it boil, let it simmer for an hour or so, and then just leave it for a day or so. And you can see, hopefully you can see that it's a pretty rich, strong colour. There's a little bit that's been sitting in there for about half an hour. So those pits that you've chopped up are in your pot, boiling water, leave it for a little bit. I just simmer it on the stove, put a lid on it. Then after a day or so, or you can leave it longer, but I tend to leave it for a day because I'm impatient. You then want to strain it. So can you see that? Just about see that, can't you? So I'm going to pour that through a funnel into my kilner jar. I'm just going to stop there. And hopefully, can you see just about in the bottom of there? You can kind of see the colour that's building up in there. And once it's in a kilner jar, you can keep that for quite a long time, like at least a month or so, if not longer. And keep the lid on it. And the easiest and least impactful way of dyeing is to put your fabric into there and put it on a sunny windowsill or in the airing cupboard or bury it in a compost heap. so it has a little bit of warmth, and just leave it for as long as you can stand. Usually within a day, you've got a reasonable colour. If it's nice and strong, half an hour and you'll have a little bit of colour. So it depends on the strength of colour and what fabric you're putting in. All of these natural dyes will only work on natural fibres. So you cannot dye polyester with a natural dye. It has to be a natural fibre. That does include viscose and nylon. So viscose is made of a plant, is made of a tree pulp. So it acts like paper or cotton. And nylon is made to replicate silk. So you can actually dye nylon, but polyester is the one that you can't dye with any of these. So linen, cotton, wool, silk, hemp, anything else you can think of is natural. And you can just leave those in there. Now, the longer you leave something, the more it's going to seep. So if you're looking to do shibori and folded techniques, you want to try and dye quite quickly, because the length of time it's in the water means that water will seep into your binds, into your clamp, you know, your, God, my brain's gone. What's the word I'm looking for? Resists. So it's hard to get a crisp pattern. So if you're trying to do shibori, the quicker you can dye, the better, which is why indigo is so beautiful for it, because it works so instantly. Yeah. So that's the avocado, that's kind of the finished. Now what I've added to that, which I haven't mentioned yet, is a tablespoon of soda ash. So it can be bicarbonate of soda, it can be soda crystals, it can be caustic soda, which you don't really want to be having, but a tiny bit of caustic soda, it's a stronger, much stronger form of it. So I use soda ash, which is a reasonably strong, and I use that in my kitchen for cleaning and stuff as well. So it's like bicarbonate of soda, slightly different chemical formula, but essentially you're making something alkaline, and that alkalinity keeps the sort of pretty pinkish colour that the avocado gives you. Okay, so you put a tablespoon in a Kilner jar like this. So this has got 6 avocados in it. When I pour the rest in, it'll fill that up. So you've got a litre of water, tablespoon of soda, and your 6 avocados. Okay, now I'm going to move on to showing you a few little bits of folding, and we're going to pop those into the dye. Just seeing where the best thing to, because I'm on small screen here, so I'm not really sure what I'm showing you. That's a bit better. Right, I'm going to move that over there a little bit. So a few simple shibori methods I'm going to show you. So I always wash my fabric first and leave it so it's slightly damp, and that helps the dye to penetrate. So I've got a sort of rectangular piece of cloth. Going on to cloth, I hardly ever buy cloth. All this is bed linen, actually from the NHS laundry bags that I got involved with, and I was cutting the tops off bed linen, off the pillowcases. So I've got huge amounts of strips of cotton. And also people were sending beautiful linen sheets and cotton sheets in. So I've got large quantities of fabric left over for our future projects. So if you've got a rectangle of fabric, the first thing you want to do to get a stripe pattern or a grid pattern is to fold it like a concertina fold. So you go back and forth like this, as if you're making a fan. Yeah. Now if you were to do something with that now, so say to clamp it or tie it, you'd end up with a stripe running along that fabric. What I'm going to do is fold it into a triangle. So I'm going to fold that one down and fold that down. So I end up with a little triangular parcel. And then I'm going to use my bulldog clip and pop it onto the top there. So that resisted area is going to run through those triangles, and you'll end up with quite an interesting pattern running down the length of the cloth. The best thing is to just try things, just try different folds, and take photos of them when they're in this state, so that when you take them out and you unwrap them, you've got some kind of reference as to how you'd made it. I always forget. And I've got some really lovely floral kind of Japanese patterns, and it's not always easy to remember how to do them, but I've got a little worksheet I can send out. This is a really, really simplest one, and you get a kind of wave bark-like sort of pattern from it. So I'm going to undo it so you can see how I do it again. So again, I got a rectangle of cloth, which I've twisted. So it's as if you're making yarn. So you're twisting it that way, and then you allow it to twist back on itself. So it twists the other way. So it's as if you're making rope, yeah? And then I'm just going to put an elastic band on the end of it to hold it. So where it's twisted, you're going to get resists running down the cloth. You could also take 3 pieces of cloth and plait them up, so you'll get a kind of resist happening on all 3. Then really a simple one. That's just being concertina folded this way. Like that. Oops, badly. And then concertina folded the other way as well. So the reason you fold it, you concertina fold it, is because when it goes in the die is going to be able to get to these different layers. If you folded it in on itself, like that, there's going to be a whole area in there that it's really difficult for the die to get to, which can also be nice, and it's a way of maybe getting a graduation and different areas of colour depth. But if you want it to sort of run all the way through and you want to get a pattern, so this will give a grid pattern because you folded the cloth both ways. And all I'm going to do with that one, have I lost it? What have I just done with my elastic band? Okay, I've lost my elastic band. I'm going to use a peg instead. So I'm just going to pop a peg there and another one on that side, like that. Okay. And then finally, these are then going to just go into my die. Okay. So pot die. So we're just going to drop those in there. And before we finish, I'll get them back out and we'll have a look at them. And then finally, I give you some buttons. In your kit, you've got some little buttons. So just this kind of traditional little circular little ring pattern by taking a button and popping it into your cloth like that. And then you can use an elastic band if you want, but it's quite nice to use little bits of yarn. And then you'll be dyeing those up as well. And you just wrap those around the button. Tie a single knot will do if you do it quite tightly. Everything you do needs to be pretty tight because what you're trying to do is to stop the dye from getting to areas of the cloth. So you'll have 3 little circles there. Okay, if you use certain buttons, the buttons will actually dye as well. I'm never sure what they're made of, but some buttons dye. Okay. I'm now going to go on and show you some other dyes.
Kat, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, well done. Oh, I can hear myself too. Quick question from the chat. Did you soak those avocado stones first? Or did
Say that again?
Did you soak the avocado stones, or are they, you just crack on and use them as they come out the avocado?
Yeah, no, you can just use them straight away. So the ones that I've just put in, let me just show you the colour now. So those are the ones that came out of the avocado. It's hot. Came out of the avocado about an hour ago, and I've just put them up and put them straight into the dye pot, which has got the ones that I put in 2 days ago. So you don't need to soak them before, because the soaking brings out the colour, yeah? So you can let them dry and then use them, or you can use them straight away. Does that answer?
They just cut easily enough. I think that's what Gemma was asking, that they I had assumed that avocado pits were really solid and hard, but they actually cut easily, do they?
Yeah, once they've, if they're very fresh, you can cut them, and once they've soaked overnight, you can cut them. Once they've been left for 2 or 3 days, that they do become pretty hard. But then if you soak them, they'll soften up again. What I also do when once they've soaked overnight, and I haven't done that now, is I use a potato masher on them. So with any dye material, you want to make the bits as small as you can without them being ground up really fine. But you can blend them. But I tend to use a potato masher once they've soaked for a day to really kind of mush it up and get the most of the colour, and leave it for a couple of hours after you've mashed it as well. So is that okay with the avocado? We can come back to it.
Yep, perfect. Let's move on.
Cutting things up. So, my brain's gone. My brain's gone dead. What is this?
I can't see.
Wildflower. They should be obviously growing up that way. And it's gone out of my mind. What it is, meadow plant, and they get bigger and they have red seeds. Is anybody saying what they are?
Is it burdock or dock or
valerian? Dock. Oh, it'll come to me. Anyway, so I collected those yesterday. So the first thing before you want to make a dye is that you cut things up. So just scissors and just any leaves. So I've done on here. I've got I've got rid of it now. I have nettles, and I've also got, this is Queen Anne's lace, wild carrot. So that's been soaking in some hot water since this morning. So once it's in, either before it's in the water or once it's in the water, just take your scissors to it and cut things up and give it a really good mush. So it's got a lovely smell to it actually, and I haven't done this before. But I'd read that it is meant to be quite a good dye, and sure enough, it's really, really lovely. Look how pretty that is. So that's just some of the flower heads and loads of the leaves, and there's tons of the stuff around at the moment. And if you take the leaves sort of as they're getting a bit big and they're wilting a little bit, that's absolutely fine. So that's Queen Anne's lace. Wild carrot. This one here, this is nettle. So also a really lovely green, but quite different to the Queen Anne's lace. It's a much grayer, sort of more of a sort of slightly camo green. It gets deeper as the season goes on. So if you get the really young first spring nettle tips, you'll get a lighter green, and then it sort of goes darker and duller. That's got a bit of embroidery on it. That's an old pillowcase. So pillowcases are great. You quite often get interesting, nice little bits of embroidery. Tablecloths, antimacassars, napkins, things like that with interesting bits of embroidery. When you dye those up, become really interesting. That's got a weird kind of pattern on it as well. And I think that's from soaking it in my aluminium kettle. So on the little video, the pre-video we sent out, I showed you that I'd soaked some fabrics before using them in an old aluminium kettle. And I think that's what's given it, can you see there's some darker patches on there? I think that's what that's from. Yeah, I haven't talked about mordants and things. So people get really kind of worried about natural dyes, that they're really complicated and you have to use mordants. Certain ones you do really need to use a mordant with, but I try and avoid those. And a lot of things you will get colour out without having to use any treatment, or just using things like soda and vinegar and salt. And I'm going to come on to those in the other room in a minute. So I quite often soak things in an aluminium pan in the hope that they'll pick up a little bit of the aluminium from that pan. And aluminium is a metal salt which helps dyes to stick to the fabric. But it's really not crucial. So I'd have a go without worrying about any of that stuff first, and just pick things, cut them up, put some boiling water on them, leave them soaking till the next day, and strain them and have a look and put a bit of fabric in and see what works and what doesn't, is the best advice. As far as things altering the colour, iron is one of the main things that will change the colour. So I mentioned iron water, and I'm going to show you some next door in a minute, but I just want to show you the effect that can have. So this is the nettles. This is just plain stinging nettles. This is the stinging nettles in a little metal curry pot. What are they called? Tali? No. Oh, can't think. But you know what I mean. Like a little metal, and it's gone rusty where the coating has come off. My wok's gone the same way. If you dye in a pot like that, you're automatically getting the iron to have an effect on the cloth. And I don't know how much you probably. If I hold the two up together, I don't know whether you're going to be able to see. Probably can't see on camera, but the one that's got the iron is a much duller greyish colour than the green of the nettles on their own. So by adding some iron or cooking in an iron pot, that's one way you'll change the colour. And you need to think about that. If you're going to clamp things with metal clamps, bulldog clips, they may well have iron on them, and if you put those into your dye pot, that'll change the whole colour of the dye pot. So it's just worth remembering that if you do something and you do it again, you think, why does it come out a sort of sludgy-ish greyish colour? And you may have put some metal in there, some iron in there, which may have altered it. And that's all the things I want to show you out there.
Me again.
Yeah.
Can you hear
I'm
me?
going to go to my other camera now. Oh, I know. Hang on, before I go next door, I'm just going to strain the Queen Anne's lace because I want to take some of it next door. So when I'm done with things, either going through a colander or talking about net curtain bags, I use old net curtains loads for my gathering and for straining. So I just put net curtain over the kilner jar and strain that. Give it a good squeeze. Probably get a bit more colour out of this if I'd left it overnight, but I just want to get it next door to have a go with it. And the great thing about this is this will all just go onto your compost, or you can blend it and have a go at making paper with it. Or sometimes you can like eat it, but it depends if you've added anything to it. So I'm just going to take that out. That is an amazing green. Everything looks black on here, doesn't it? But it's actually quite a nice green colour in there. So I'm going to take that next door. Come with me. Turn on, and to make sure everything's turned off a second. Okay. Okay, hello. I'm going to lift you up a second for there, so I'm not bent over all the time. Just drop on the floor. Okay, so we're now in my lounge on my dining room table, and I've brought a lot of stuff home from my studio. The first 2 weeks of lockdown, I gradually started bringing more and more stuff home. So I've been going to the studio like once a week or something and just cycling down there, but it's not really essential work. So I haven't been going there very much. I think I'm going to try and start going a little bit more from next week. So yeah, I've got a lot of my materials at home, but also I didn't want to go out and get anything, although I have got things from the studio. Most of this is things that you'll have at home, things that you'll have in your kitchen. There's not very much specialist equipment that you need. And so I'm going to quickly move on to talk about avocado and the ink. So I'm going to hold this up to show you. I don't know how well you can see that, but that's the avocado dye. And all I've done is boiled it up a little bit more so that it becomes much stronger, a stronger colour. So an ink is essentially a dye. There's no difference. It's just a botanical liquid colour, but it's often been made more concentrated. And sometimes it might have had some things added to it to just make it flow a little bit better and to preserve it a bit longer. So the avocado here, the effects of different chemicals on it. So this is with soda, this is with iron, that's with copper, that's with salt, and that's with vinegar. And those are the sort of 5 things that I'd suggest you have handy if you're going to do some natural dyeing and ink making. They're the sort of basic chemicals that can change the colour of things. I'm going to put you back down to here now, so you can have a better look at things. Move that over to there a second. Here's a little piece of cloth that was laid to rest on a piece of ironmongery from an old railway line. So you can see the much darker black pattern where the iron has affected the avocado dye. And I'm just going to show you a little bit of that on here quickly. I've left my paintbrush next door. Hang on. Oh no, I don't need my paintbrush. You can use this. So I tend to use these little syringes that you get from tooth whitening, and I confess I did have a tooth whitening kit off my dad, who's a dentist, for my 50th birthday, so I got loads of these, and I didn't use it. You can see they're terrible. So little syringes, or pet syringes, or kids medicine syringes, they're really good. And then you can just put some of your ink onto your page. They're kind of quite cool to draw with anyway. I'm just going to spread it out a little bit. So this is quite a nice dark avocado ink, and I made this about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, something like that. And all it's had added to it is soda and gum arabic. So it's just a little bit thicker than the neat avocado ink. Oh, and a tiny bit of iron. So you can see that avocado and soda and iron. Oh, in February, 10th of February, I made it, and it's lasting really well. So once you've put your plain colour on, you can have a play with just sprinkling. So that's soda, that's salt. Here's my iron water. So that's just got some bits of rusty metal, some salt, white vinegar and water, and then within 3 days you'll start to get the rust developing. You ideally need to leave a little bit of the metal sticking out of the surface so that it can get to the oxygen. And then you've got what we call iron water, okay, rusty water. And that, I'm just using my fingers now because I haven't got a brush. That you can just drop onto your colour. So if you're looking at using a dye, using it as an ink is a really good way to see how it will react to different chemicals. You can do the same with copper. So this is copper electrical wire, which I've just stripped out of some wiring. And again, it's in water, salt and white vinegar with a little bit sticking off the edge. And you can actually see how it's growing up the bit of copper. So that's how you get copper water. So copper is another metal salt that is used in natural dyeing. And that can also sometimes alter the colours of your ink. So I've just done on there those 4 little ones. And you need to give it a few minutes, and you'll eventually see that the one that I've done the iron on will go much, much blacker, will go much darker. I'm just going to very quickly do the same thing with this green. Hang on, I'm going to go and get my paintbrush. Okay, so same thing with my green. Remember, I haven't actually boiled this down, so it's going to be quite a pale green. What I would normally do is put this into a pan and leave it for a couple of hours on a low heat, and reduce the water down so you've got a more concentrated colour. But we'll do the same thing again, and we're just going to sprinkle some salt and some soda. Soda nearly always makes things brighter with plant colours, so it's a really good one to have. And then, where's my vinegar? Where's my vinegar? I'm just going to put some vinegar. Vinegar bleaches it, gets rid of it completely. And iron is the last one. I haven't put any iron yet. Let's just drop a bit of iron on the side there. So that's interesting to know that the vinegar bleaches it, because then you can start to, if you're doing botanical printing and wrapping leaves and things and steaming them, if something bleaches with vinegar, you have plants that have a high acid content, and they can actually be used to remove colour and stuff. That's getting a bit technical, but that's how you get botanical bleaching, discharge, what you call natural discharge happening. So I'm going to leave those there and see what the reactions to those other chemicals are. Okay. As far as colours in the kitchen, just really quickly, this is strawberry. So great with kids. Just squish the fruit up onto a page. Try and get some nice paper or nice card, which will work much better than a sort of thin, cheaper paper. But that's strawberries. This is blueberries. You get a little bit. It's only the skin that has colour. So if you can sort of peel some of the skin and rub it on. This is tea. That's the avocado. This is pomegranate, but with iron added to it, which is quite a traditional ink colour. And that is soy sauce, which is great. It's really lovely colour. Other things you can use are things like carrot tops, onion skins, turmeric, and there's probably others which I can't think of at the moment, but your kitchen has a wealth of delights in it. And quickly, and I know I'm probably out of time, but I'm going to show you the flower really quickly. So green squirrel, I'm just going to say up here quickly, thank you, because you were just about the first ones to come and get in touch at the start of this to say that you were going to pay us for the classes that we couldn't do for you. And I'm tearful now because it was just so lovely that you did that. And lots of us have lost loads of our income, and it was a really, really lovely gesture. And that's why we're doing this as well, to pay you back. And I'll pull myself together now. I don't know why I'm crying. I've had an Arts Council grant. I'm richer than I have been for bloody months. Yeah, so thanks to the Arts Council and organisations like Green Squirrel, who have held their promises of paying us. Okay, so the project I was doing is for the Girl Who Wouldn't Give Up. And the last 2 days' work I did was on that project, where I worked with a community group in Riverside and Grangetown. Yeah, it was Riverside, wasn't it? Yeah. And the Dusty Forge project in Ely. And what we were starting to do is to rewild the backdrops that I dyed with plants for the launch of the Girl Who Wouldn't Give Up project. And what we did is taking little scraps of fabric, we started making little flowers, and you can kind of see behind me there, and I'll hold it up afterwards. That's one of the larger pieces, and down the bottom part of it are there's about 10 flowers on there already from that day that I did in Dusty Forge. So I'm just going to show you how to make one of these little flowers, and that could be with the dies that you have done as a result of this, or it could just be scraps. So this is scrap pillowcases and scrap muslin, and you start with a circle of cloth, and I drew around a little dish for that, so it's about 10 centimeters, but they can be all sorts of different sizes. Then you want to cut out 5 of those, and I've lost my scissors, but it doesn't matter at the moment because I've got another one here. So you're going to cut 5 or 6 of those, 4, 5, 6, it doesn't matter. You can make as many as you want. Once you've got your circle, let's do this one. You're going to fold it in half and in half again. So you've got a little piece of pizza. And then needle and thread, reasonably strong thread. And you're going to just stitch, running stitch down that curved, the edge of the circle edge. And go quickly. I've got nice sashiko needles here, so they're quite nice and strong. And you can go through lots of fabric at one time. God, sorry for crying. Don't know why I did that. I haven't cried for about a month. Okay, and then you just gather it up. And you do that as many times as you want, really. Ideally, you do 5. But you can obviously add more if you want to. When you've finished, when you've got as many petals as you want on there, and you need, I'd say Kirsty Allsop stole my thunder on this because she did it on like the first week of her craft lockdown thing. So Kirsty, that's my skin. Don't worry. Okay, and she was going, oh, I don't think it's very good, but you do have to play with them a little bit. to get them to look like a nice petal. When you go all the way around, you just join those two together. So you come back to your first one, like there, and then a couple of stitches there to hold it in place, and then you can add your button. So you take button into the center. I won't sew that on now. I'll just do it to there. And then that can go over onto our rewilded. I'm going to hold it up actually so you can see it. There's quite a lot of them going on down the bottom here. So I'd love to have some more. If anybody fancies making some flowers for us and adding to it, and we're hopefully going to have sort of 4 or 5 of these rewilded banners, and they're going to have stitch and other pieces on when we get back to working with the community groups as well. And they'll be shown when we reconvene, I guess, in September, maybe, or sometime. I'm probably way over time, Beck. I don't know how long I've been talking.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Kat, thank you. Everyone can turn it back to gallery view now. You don't want to see my face big. Kat, that was amazing. That was so much